What is the difference between earnest money deposit and security deposit? Okay guys, we're gonna jump right into this. What is the difference between earnest money deposit and a security deposit? There's a big difference and we're gonna cover it. And if you've got a question just like this, all you've gotta do is type it in the comments below and I'll create a video for you and for all my other amazing subscribers. Thank you for being a subscriber. Okay, so the difference here comes down to what type of contract we're talking about. So earnest money basically is what says you're serious about purchasing a property, right? So if I'm gonna purchase a property, one of the things that I'm gonna do is what's called consideration, is I'm gonna put some earnest money down. Now, is earnest money required? No. You can have consideration that's not earnest money, but typically when you're dealing with a real estate purchase contract, the biggest form of consideration is putting a couple of dollars up to say that you're serious about that. Now, if you're dealing with something that's on the multiple listing service, on the MLS, they're typically going to want you to put anywhere from $500 to $5,000 in earnest money down. Now, where does this earnest money go? Well, the earnest money goes towards the purchase of the property, but if you mess up, the seller could keep that. So typically what happens is you put up earnest money and you can put the earnest money and it's refundable as long as you don't go past these deadlines. And there's a couple of deadlines that you're gonna have. You're gonna have your inspections deadline, inspections and due diligence. You'll typically have a loan deadline, loan denial deadline, which means I wanna make sure, let's back up and talk about the inspections. The inspections are basically saying, hey, I just walked through the property. I know nothing about this property. I wanna be able to get someone in here to really take a good look at the property. I want to get in the attic. I want to crawl around. I want to get in the basement. I want to make sure everything looks good, because if I'm going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, I want to make sure I know what I'm getting. And so that gives you the opportunity. So after you go under contract, you have this opportunity to do this inspections. Now, you'll have an inspections deadline. Now, as long as you are getting the inspections done prior to that deadline, and if you find something you don't like during that inspection, what you can then do is remove yourself from the contract. And as long as you do that before your deadline, then you'll get your earnest money back. And that's kind of the same thing with the loan denial deadline. The loan denial means, hey, I've gotten pre-approved for the loan, but if for some reason I don't get the loan, I don't want to be liable. And so as long as you get your loan approved, and if you can't get your loan approved, as long as you pull out of that contract prior to that loan denial deadline, then you'll be able to get your earnest money back in most contracts. This is the way that it's written in most contracts. And then there's typically what's called an appraisal provision. The appraisal provision basically says if the property doesn't appraise for what I'm buying it for, then I don't want to move forward. And so as long as you get the appraisal done and know what that price is prior to the time of that deadline, if the appraisal doesn't come in, your earnest money gets returned back to you in most contracts. That's what's really typical here. So the whole idea with that is earnest money. Earnest money is consideration for a purchase contract. So there's a couple of ways, couple of deadlines that you have there. As long as you don't go past those deadlines, then you're not gonna lose any earnest money. You've just gotta be really diligent with that. Now, let's talk for just a few minutes about how much earnest money you really need to be putting up. If it's an off-market property, which is what I recommend that you go for, with those, I typically only put $25 or $50 in earnest money. And with the earnest money, you wanna make sure you're not giving it to the seller. You wanna be giving that to the title company if you're dealing with an off-market property. If it's a listed property, your agent will be holding that in an escrow account. And so that's what you're basically looking at when it comes down to earnest monies. Now, if it's a property like we talked about earlier that's listed on the MLS, you could be anywhere from $50 to $5,000 in earnest money. So that's something to keep in consideration. But doing this on an off-market property is obviously a lot better when you're talking about earnest money. Now, what the heck are security deposits then? Well, security deposits are also referring to something here in real estate, but they're referring to rental contracts. So if you're doing a rental contract, what a security deposit is it's securing the property. In the event that you do something or don't take good care of the property, the landlord can use that to get the property back into shape that it was originally. Now, the security deposit is not money that the landlord can just keep for any reason. typically when you move in, you're gonna have a security deposit. That security deposit is going to protect the landlord in the event you do something to the property. So for example, let's say you move in there and you just trash the carpets. Let's say that you decide to take a motor out of a car, put it in the living room, and it gets grease all over and you wanna rebuild it. Well, the landlord's gonna say, hey, this is not normal wear and tear. This is excessive wear and tear. Normal wear and tear is typically not something they can take a security deposit for. But when I have the property in good condition when it comes back, if it's not, the landlord can say, hey, time out. This carpet was in good shape when you got it. It's not in good shape now. It's a cause of you. So we're going to take your security deposit to pay for those items. Now, with the security deposit, landlord just can't steal that money. They have to be able to document why. They have to be able to document how much it is to replace it. And if there's any additional money left over, they would have to return that to you. So you want to get documentation on that. Now, in the same regards, if it's more money that is there, the landlord can go after somebody for that. So when you are a landlord, or if you are somebody that is a tenant, that security deposit is there to protect the landlord in the event that something happens to the property, and they'll take that money and they could take more. So this is really good if you're thinking about being a landlord. This is something to take into consideration. Now, I've had properties that have been completely trashed before. I had a property that they turned and started cooking meth in the property, and then we had to do a huge meth remediation. It was an absolute disaster. So the security deposit that I had didn't go anywhere. I mean, it did, but when you're talking about a $30,000 remediation, well, remediation, remodel, redoing the property, that type of stuff, the remediation was probably $3,000 to $5,000. That little $1,000 or $1,500 in security deposit really just doesn't go a long way. So this is a topic for another day, and maybe you have a question on this, but when it comes to being a landlord, the key to this is getting tenants in there, pre-screening enough that you're not gonna get tenants that are gonna cause problems like that. And there's some tricks in doing that that we can cover, but that's a topic for another day. So this whole idea of earnest money versus security deposit, the earnest money is in those purchase contracts, the security deposit is dealing with rental contracts. It's important to know the difference between the two of these. I've got another video you should check out. Is earnest money the same as a down payment? Check out that video. I'll put it on the screen here and link it below. I also have a blog, what to do if you don't have earnest money. If you have no earnest money at all, how do you get in this real estate game? And if you'd like to get a copy of my purchase contract, like I talked about earlier with those deadlines we're going through, all you've got to do is text me at 435-294-0433. 435-294-0433. Just text your email address and our system will automatically email you a copy of a purchase contract that you can use. Otherwise, make it a very profitable day, and bye for now.